How do we prevent dementia? Do healthy foods like cooked beans and cooked whole grains as well as fresh fruit contribute to dementia since they all turn to sugar, and you said sugar causes dementia?
Well, one of the new terms for dementia or memory loss is stage 3 diabetes. So yes, by taking any form of processed sugar, that's everything from honey to agave syrup to white sugar, etc., is directly linked with that. But guess what? If you eat too many cooked processed carbohydrates, they also break down to sugar. Just it takes longer and requires a metabolism. So we have to avoid lots of carbohydrates. Small amounts, sprouted and cooked, wouldn't really bring up a problem for people. Any processed sugar has to be out. I wrote a book 25 years ago on longevity for the Swiss, and in that book I pointed out that nutrition is powerfully important. B12 deficiencies are worldwide chronic. 7 people out of 10 have B12 deficiencies. Unlike the old days where we used to say plant-based eaters are the ones with it, I've done a 33-year study now, and meat eaters, chicken eaters, fish eaters have an 8% higher incidence than vegans, and raw vegans have less, a 12 to 14%. And the reason being is that B12, which directly feeds neurons in the brain, so when you're thinking and listening to me now, it's neurons that make that happen. Literally, the absence of B12, which is 7 out of 10 people, prevent the neurons from working and functioning the way they should. Another thing we know is Udo Rasmussen, who pretty much single-handedly put essential fats on the map in the 1980s and forward, has done a long study since the mid-80s and said that about 98% of us lack some level of fat in our brain. Remember, the brain is like a fat sponge, so it's mostly water, this fatty sponge, glial cells, and neurons. And all of that requires no sugar, all of that requires B12, and all of that requires essential fat. Now, the virtual sprout on the top of the pile of sprouts is brain use. So there's been studies now that show that people who have the classic Alzheimer's gene, exactly the gene you should have, everyone has with Alzheimer's, but they don't have it at a century old, are people who are using their brain in a unique way. We used to say crossword puzzles, now we're saying luminosity, which is a program made to get the brain to function in the way that it did at 20 and 30 years old. People who socialize, people who read a lot, have far less dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And remember, this is a major problem because 25% of my baby boom generation will have some level of dementia or Alzheimer's.
For someone concerned with dementia, what would you suggest supplementing with on a daily basis?
Life Give B12, because ours is a living B12 that has the methylcyabolamine we extract in a raw state from the algae, and the other forms of B12. Also, a person has to eat a diet that has natural essential fats in it. So all germinated nuts, seeds, grains, and beans have that, but algae have the highest amount. Algae, which I take 5 types of every single day, have the exact fat the brain is constructed of. So that's blue-green algae, phytoplankton, sea algae, etc. Sea algae produce the highest DHA, but also the blue-green and green algae. So we never have DHA problems with that either.